What is up, everybody? It is game week. Florida State set to open their season 3:30 p.m. Saturday against Georgia Tech at Doak Campbell Stadium. I'm Aslan Hajavandi, joined by Gene Williams, founder and administrator of Warchant.com, and the managing editor of Warchant.com, Ira Schofel. Use that promo code Warchant30 for 30 free days of access. I think by my count, you'll be able to hang on for 3 W's in the next 30 days, hopefully, with Mike Norvell leading the way.
Like the optimism.
There we go. I'm all in now, man. After those press conferences, we got to speak to not only Mike Norvell, the head football coach, but also all the coordinators, Kenny Dillingham, Adam Fuller, and John Papuchis. The depth chart has been revealed. It's a week one depth chart, but there's just there's a lot of excitement around it, Gene. As I pull it up here and you look at it offensively, we know obviously who's going to be at quarterback. Running back, Jay Sean Corbin's the guy that we imagine. But, man, wide receiver. They got to have a cool name for that package when they roll out 6'4" Tamorrion Terry and 6'3" Warren Thompson. That got me excited.
I thought about that. You could do some trips and hide Keyshawn behind those two huge guys back there, and they never see him coming. Yeah. No, that's great. And it was brought up a lot about Warren Thompson, talk about going from the doghouse to the penthouse in just a couple weeks. But yeah, that's a formidable. Two guys on the outside, two big guys. So when at college football, there's always one or two teams, a lot of teams that have an undersized corner somewhere. It's going to take real mismatch problems for a lot of defenses with those guys going out there. But I let Ira talk about it. I think really the bigger shakeup today is on the offensive line.
Yeah, I'm. It's kind of interesting. I mean, it's not that it's anything outlandish with what they did on the offensive line, but I do think the message is very loud and clear that what you did in the past doesn't necessarily matter a whole lot to this coaching staff. And that's the case at a lot of positions, but particularly at center. You're starting a redshirt freshman, Maurice Smith, who did play a little bit last year as a true freshman before he went down for the rest of the year with an injury. But Bavion Johnson and Andrew Baselli are two guys who've started games before at center. Now, Bavion's still in the starting lineup. He moves to guard. But again, I think that's a pretty strong message that Maurice Smith gets a start at center. And then also, at some other positions to Gene's point about Warren Thompson, Ontario Wilson started basically all last season, has started a lot of games at receiver. Pokey Wilson, they like him a lot, but they've given Warren Thompson the start above him. So I think that's one big takeaway for me looking at this depth chart is this is a first-year coaching staff, and really what you did in the past isn't necessarily going to determine what opportunities you get in the future.
Well, obviously, you're starting from scratch. We always wonder, like Ira said, what you've done in the past doesn't matter. Really, I think with this new coaching staff, they proved that with Maurice Smith being the center. I mean, all line we were like, is it Baselli? Is it Bavion? I mean, we were sure it was going to be one of those guys. And there you go. And I wonder, with Bavion not even listed at center, I wonder if he's done at center. I mean, maybe they've seen enough. It seemed like with us, he seemed like a good athlete who could move. She should be a quality starting offensive lineman. It just never really meshed for him at center. So maybe this is a better home for him playing guard. But that's another one, too. We thought Brady Scott was probably, with all those starts, was going to be the guy at guard, and he's listed as a backup behind Bavion. So, yeah, a lot of shakeups on the line. But the coach has made it pretty clear this is not exactly set in stone. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a couple different combinations this Saturday.
So they opened the season last year, if I'm not mistaken. Jawan Williams, left tackle, left guard, Brady Scott. Bavion was your center. Dante was at right guard. Ryan Roberts was your right tackle. So, I mean, you talk about, just 3 new bodies, period, with Darius Washington, Maurice Smith, and Devontae Love-Taylor. You swap Dante to the left side, maybe find something there. And Bavion hopefully has some sort of epiphany playing guard. But, that really that jumped off more than anything, obviously, was the offensive line, just shaking it up that much. And you don't want to change things just for the sake of changing things, but just having those new sort of names and new places just has to make you feel good about things.
Well, I also, real quick on the offensive line, also, I do think that, one of the comments I think Kenny Dillingham mentioned, and maybe Mike Norvell, was wanting athleticism up front. And I think that's a pretty athletic group. I mean, if you think about Devontae Love-Taylor was a defensive end coming out of high school. Darius Washington is a very athletic guy for a big man at left tackle. They talked about Maurice Smith, and when we asked what gave him the opportunity to be the starter at center, they talked about his athletic ability. We know Dante is a guy who can move, and Bavion's a really good athlete for an interior offensive lineman. So I think that I don't know if I realized going into it how much of a premium they were going to put on athletic ability. It makes sense, but I think that's a clear message that if you're not a very good athlete, you're going to have a hard time playing on their offensive line.
I'll throw in too. You just look at that depth chart. There's 2 true freshmen at the number 2 role, and it's guys we heard about a lot during preseason practice, and that's Thomas Schrader and Robert Scott. So I mean, it's true to what the coaches were praising those guys that they were able to elevate in that position. But I think if you would ask the coaches honestly, they would rather not those guys have to play soon. It would be better if they could learn this season and the starting group can stay healthy.
Moving on to the defensive side of things, obviously things will be spearheaded in the middle there with Marvin Wilson leading the way for Florida State defensively. Joshua Kando, who's been a revelation of sorts, it seems like this preseason camp, also firmly entrenched at his starting spot. This secondary, though, I think as much as we talk about the offensive line offensively, the secondary is kind of what jumped off the screen to me. I don't know for you, Ira, what was the first thing that sort of caught your eye when you looked at the defensive depth chart?
Yeah, I think when you see it on paper, I mean, that defensive tackle group, the fact that you're going to be bringing Corey Durden and Fabian Levitt off the bench, I think that kind of jumps out at you a little bit. Linebackers were about what we expected. I think in the secondary, as you said, not finding out for sure. We've kind of expected this for the last couple of weeks based on Mike Norvell's kind of vague answers about Hamza Nasruddin that he might not be ready for the season opener. So that hurts. He was your leading tackler the last 2 years. You'd like to have him in the lineup. It sounds like he'll be back probably by the Miami game in week 3 after the bye week. But other than that, I think Travis Jay, the fact that he's a potential starter at 2 different safety spots, it's clear between that. I think that would be the one thing. Travis Jay is a possible starter at 2 safety spots and at kick returner and at punt returner. I think it's very clear that they want Travis Jay on the football field.
How about Janarian Jones, the transfer from Mississippi, coming in and locking out one of those? I guess I kind of thought it might be Akeem Dent or somebody else. I mean, that shows right away. Those transfers those could end up being huge. You think about that. You got 3 potential starters there across the board of guys who transferred in. So the transfer portal could be working out very well for Florida State.
And the other thing I would add on the DB part is, and we were talking a little bit about this off the air, but Cyrus Fagan was a starter for a good bit of last season at safety. Brennan Gant played a lot of football last year as a freshman. The fact that those guys have kind of been passed over by some of these guys that haven't played as much at Florida State. And again, none of this is set in stone. It's not like the starters are going to play every snap. The competition will continue. But I think that speaks to the depth of this defensive backfield is guys that played a lot and or started in the past are going to have to be fighting for playing time.
One other thing I thought that caught me a little bit by surprise is the fact that Jaleel McRae looks like he'll be at the weak side linebacker spot. I thought that was a guy that they liked at middle, or at least they did last year. I don't know, maybe schematically there's just something differently they feel about putting him there. But Steven Dix Jr., true freshman, backing up Leonard Warren III, and his play's been obviously up and down, and Steven Dix has had a lot of positive sort of feedback this early on. So many new faces and potential new places. Special teams wise, John Papucha spoke about things on that side. You asked a question that you never asked before, Ira. How did it feel to finally pop your snapper backup carry?
Backup snapper question. Yeah, no, I think it's an interesting approach he's taking to those positions, and it speaks to what we talked about at the very beginning, that nothing you did in the past really carried much merit into how they decided what they were doing this year. They had the Glennon kid started last year, has been a really solid snapper. Garrett Murray is a guy that could have opportunities to go play at other places. I've got to know him a little bit since he's been at Florida State. He had opportunities to play other places, really wanted to be, his family's Florida State. He wanted to come to play at Florida State. And the fact that he's competing for that job against Grant Glennon, who I think did a really good job last year, speaks highly of him. And it sounds like it's going to be game time decisions on all these special teams guys. John Papuchis is not going to name anybody right now. They're going to be competing all week.
You mean Coach Orr?
Coach Orr.
Name?
Yeah, that's every position.
I had to step away from my computer, but I don't know. I think it was you, maybe, Ira, that asked them they're not even going to have like a specialist when it comes to a kicker. Like there won't be a 40-yard and inside guy and somebody who specializes on the longer stuff.
No, yeah, that's a good point. He said that it wouldn't be a matter of leg strength for Parker Grothaus, because that was what I kind of wondered. When we saw Ryan Fitzgerald a little bit last year, I didn't think he had quite the same leg. I mean, I know he kicked some long field goals in high school, but we didn't see it in the portions of practice we were at last year. And we know Parker Grothaus has a really big leg from what he did on kickoffs last year. But he said, no, that won't be a factor. They'd like to go with one guy. Whoever wins the job is going to win it. But even if it's not Grothaus, if Ryan Fitzgerald wins the job, he doesn't see where they're going to need to bring in Parker for long field goals. He thinks Ryan can handle any distance as well.
All right, well, that's a depth chart, folks, as we approach game one against Georgia Tech on Saturday. Again, Doak Campbell Stadium, 3:30 p.m. We're going to have a Warchant report at some point this week too, right, Gene? The triumphant return?
Right. Yeah, we got Jeff Cameron's back with the gang, and then Ira and Corey have to fight it out for that third seat there. So maybe with the age of Zoom, we could bring everybody in at once, although I don't know if we could handle that much all together at once.
We'll see. We'll shoot for the moon or the stars and land on the moon or whatever, however it goes. Do stay connected to warchant.com. Use that promo code WARCHANT30 for 30 free days of access to the website. And join us back here on YouTube on Tuesday. We'll have a live Wake Up Warchant. We'll also have all the interviews posted from player and coach availability. Hit the like button, thumbs up on YouTube, and also subscribe to the YouTube page. It's totally free of charge. Gentlemen, thanks for your time and your knowledge even more so.
Thanks.
Thank you.